How's it going, everybody? It's me, Shane, and I'm here to give you another Heels episode, I guess, review, recap, a little bit of both. Today's episode is called House Show, but before we get right on to the show, I would like to ask each and every one of you to please give me a like, a comment, and a subscribe. I genuinely appreciate each and every last one of you. So, let's talk about what a house show is. What exactly is a house show? Well, in wrestling terminology, it is a show that isn't televised and it's local. So generally, it's at least in the WWE standpoint, generally it's something that happens after the televised show. A lot of times, a dark match, which is something that won't be televised, it's a shadow match. It's things that they can never show on television that are technically non-canon. Even the results in those matches are non-canon. Um, it's just something that happens before an house show, which is just to show off new talent. That's when speaking about WWE. As we all know, if you're a wrestling fan and you watch AEW, AEW shows their dark matches, which with them wins and losses apply. But with WWE, it's a totally different thing, which makes it seem like the DWL is kind of like an indie version of WWE in a way. Um, but yeah, house. That's what a house show is, and effectively, since house shows aren't televised but can be recorded, that's basically what the DWL is trying to do with the whole Georgia State Fair. They're gonna have a house show. That's basically what it is. But man, a lot. I always say a lot happens each of these episodes, but a lot of good character development, a lot of emotional growth too. Um, I had another example for you. A good example of a house show was actually the Super SmackDown from 2 weeks ago when they had SmackDown in Madison Square Garden. Apparently, after all the cameras went off, John Cena came out to wrestle a 6-man tag against the Bloodline. Roman Reigns and the Usos. Things that you're not going to see on TV because why is John Cena still there? That's things that people who watch these things would ask those questions, right? Um, so the standout things, or should I say, the things that this episode were revolving around, not just forgiveness, but it's the speech that the it's what, it's not just the speech that the Reverend gave and the speech that Ace gave. It's the christening of Jim's baby girl seems to it's radiating with different. It's like giving people different emotions or stirring up different things within inside of people. Um, One of the great things about H's speech was, talking about original sin, but saying, we're washing away your original sin, but, if you stumble and fall and have bad days and make mistakes like we all do, it's okay. You can get back up. You can still be a good person. And it does seem like Ace was speaking from the heart, and especially thinking about himself. Uh, that was prompted by the preacher asking, when was the last time, when have you flourished? Think about when God helped you flourish. And that definitely ties in with Stacy. Oh boy, that ties in with Stacy a lot, but we're gonna get into it. But let's talk about the guest star. The guest star for today's episode was Mick Foley, the amazing and genuinely liked by everyone. I've never heard a bad thing about Mick, other than him almost killing himself when he was a wrestler. But yeah, Mick Foley, he plays a former wrestler turned podcaster named Dickie. I am unsure if Mick Foley actually podcasts, but he does a whole lot, especially when it comes to charity. He's a really good guy. Follow him on social media if you have Twitter and things of that nature. But in this one, he's doing a podcast directly an hour before the christening with Jack. They're trying to hype up the Georgia State Fair and what's going on. He's asking, well, are you wrestling Bill? Are you wrestling your brother? I mean, what's going on there? And then he wants to talk about Tom's death and how it affected Jack. And Jack is flipping out. He curses. Of course, he says sorry because he's a good old Southern boy. He's a Southern gentleman, which, Dickie's like, you don't have to say sorry. It's a podcast. You can curse. But, my name of the podcast, I forget the name of the podcast. I think it's like Unholds Barred or something like that. He wants to tell people the ins and the outs of what goes on within the sport, not just the good and the bad. And wants to reflect how Tom's death affected Jack, and Jack doesn't want to talk about that. Jack walked out on it, and that's a and that's a funny thing. But in my notes here, I got tons of notes for y'all. Uh, Instead of going to Jack, we're gonna go to Stacy first. Stacy feels lost. Like she does feel warmth and love, whenever she's spending time with, you know, Jack and their son Tom. But she went to college and now she's working as a clerk at a grocery store. She can sing very well, but she's not doing anything else with that. She doesn't. She also feels like Jack does not respect her opinion. You know, and when she blew up on him, he was wondering where everything came from because she just flat out cursed. And she's like, the squirrels. I had to kill the squirrels. You're late to the christening, and now not just late with the christening, but the gerbil. I told you don't get him a gerbil. And when that gerbil got loose, I had to catch it. You couldn't be bothered to go out and catch fireflies with us. And she wants to feel like she is being hurt, which is a normal thing. Um, you know, I one of the great parts of this scene, they're sitting apart. Jack's on the couch and she's on one of the love seats. And when it feels like the conflict, not the conflict is resolving, but when it feels like they're coming together, she does move closer to him. And I, it's very refreshing to see how Jack is, especially towards his family. He's very open and receptive to everything Stacy says. He's like, if you want to do things, you want to go out there, I'm going to support you 100%. He says he loves her because of her mind, because of who she is, and she's telling him, I understand you're burning the candle on both ends, but you need to spend time with your son, away from the phone, and devoting a lot of time to him. And this is a very good highlight of home life for these wrestlers. Trying to do the thing that you love, but at the same time trying to do not just doing the thing that you love, doing what you need to do for your family. He's trying to keep that business going to provide for their family, upon also while having a day job, while running shows and everything else that comes along with being a working man. Well, being a lower, I don't even think I can call him middle class man. He's lower middle class, but upper bottom class man, just a blue collar guy. And she understands all this, but her bottom line was, you will respect what I have to say. And we all know he basically got him the gerbil because of beating up his uncle in front of him. Now let's talk about Jack, because one of the things that Stacey did say was, it feels like we're having the same conversation all the time. And I'm going to definitely come back to that, because this is something that Jack said to Rooster. Jack needs some therapy, man, because he has not been able to talk about his father's death and how it affected him at all. He is working, he's working hard, and by working hard, it's also helping him run from his emotions. um, he doesn't like Bill, he doesn't trust Bill, but he's thinking like, I'm gonna have to use this guy to promote our business. I do give him credit because he respects Willie. He respects her a ton, and he even goes to the point of saying, a lot of times we all say things we don't mean, like Ace blaming him for their father dying, saying he's gonna die the same way their father did. Him calling his brother XYZ. Those are the things that it resonates, that he can own a lot of what he says and what goes on with him as a person and with his character. But I also think a lot of things that go on with Jack is in relation to his dad, because we do. Ace has watched a home video. It seems like he watches it a whole lot, because we see him watch in the beginning, we see him watch it at the end, and something that stood out to me is, in the beginning we see Willie in the past, and it juxtaposes with Willie in the present with a show, and it was Jack's debut. And she said Jack did a good job, and Tom says the bottom line is what matters. It's not how well you fight. It's how much money you're bringing in, right? And it appears that Tom had a tons of hopes within Ace. Ace was supposed to play for the Georgia Bulldogs and play in the NFL. And even their mother on this thing says, don't put a lot of pressure on him. He's like, it's no pressure. It's destiny. even when Jack tries to say, well, he's kind of cocky, he's like, nah, that's not cocky, that's confidence. It seems like Tom was living vicariously through Ace, and I think there's a lot of resentment from Jack for that. Uh, just the the counselor and me just picking up on some of these things. Uh, and let's go back to, and this is so, it's so bad because he is burning a count on both ends, but because he is so emotionally drained, he's having multiple conversations that seem exactly the same, but we're going over to Rooster now. He says, Rooster, we seem like we're having the same conversation all the time. Rooster tells him, nah. What you don't see is that the conversation is different each time we're having it. And that really wasn't as ominous as it could have been. Ominous for Jack, but not ominous for us because Rooster has already had a conversation with Gully from the GWL. Or it's a GLW. I forget what those crazy Floridian thing was called. But I already had a conversation where a guy drops $1,000 on the table. Even though, here's the funny part, he does not stay for the whole meeting. Apparently, he got another phone call, and he's telling him, "Look, man, I know you're great and everything else like that, and I understand you're trying to have loyalty and blah 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 blah. But call me, you be a big star." And even Rooster's calling him out. He's like, "So you hate Jack that much? You trying to ruin him?" He's like, and this guy has a problem with Jack shit talking him to the world. I suppose like it affects me. Doesn't seem to be affecting him that much though. So uh, this seems a lot like a Paul Heyman versus Vince McMahon kind of thing. ECW versus WWE. But we all know what happened to ECW, and the crazy part is, I kind of feels like the DWL is almost ECW, a family friendly ECW, mind you. But Rooster ends up taking that job. He calls him at the end, and leaves a voicemail and says, "I'm in." But Rooster does have, he. I'm kind of worried about Rooster joining them because he walks out and throws the money, and he's like, don't play that big shot shit with me. He's offended because he thinks he's looking down on him. He says, "Look, I ain't got time for all that macho stuff. I left you money there to show you how serious I am about having you." He's like, "It's not about always being bigger when you're angry and you want to fight. It's about having a short temper and having more family." And it makes a crack about, the Irish we have perfected that. And actually, as he says that, timing, the car that's going to pick him up pulls up. This really big, fat white guy gets out. He doesn't pick that shit up, pick up the money. So Rooster, I don't know what you think you're getting yourself into, but and it almost looks like he was gonna stay because he was having a great time with the boys in the back when he got to the DWL to train and everything else like that. But let's take a look at the shining light of this show, Bobby. Bobby is just amazing. Crystal tries to apologize. He says, "No, this is part of the gig." And matter of fact, Bobby apologizes for getting his leg being broken. And I should have been better, should have been careful. And he's blissfully unaware about the ruthlessness that was behind the attack. As a matter of fact, he is still kind to Ace even before Ace apologizes, which we will get into that apology. But he just he sees the good in everyone, and it's wonderful and refreshing, especially in a show like this where everyone got baggage and everyone's being held back. And even Bobby, when he's trying to live up to what he wants to be, he loves his music, he loves his wrestling, but he's such a wonderful dude. He's really cool. Likes way too much ranch dressing, and he's pretty dim. He's very dim, but that's what it is with Bobby, right? Crystal, if she doesn't get to wrestle soon, and even Bobby's like, you need to, eat some protein, bulk up a bit, but if she doesn't get to wrestle soon, I don't know what's gonna happen with her because the whole valet thing, I don't know if it's gonna keep working for her. She still, she had a very nice interaction with Willie, where they had like we're supposed to stick together because women and there's too many men around us, so I'm not gonna go at it with you, but you had a part to play in this. You provoked Ace on top of everything, and Crystal takes that. She apologizes to Ace. She apologizes to Bobby. She doesn't know how to speak to Jack. She feels like she has been pushed off to the side. So I'm hoping next episode we do address her speaking with Jack. It looks like she will have a conversation with him, and I'm hoping things look up on that end because Rooster's already It's already flown the coop. Let's talk about Ace, the godfather of Jim's baby girl, and it's pretty interesting. He has some good character development because he ends up not just apologizing to Crystal. He had Jim say, "Did you ever apologize to the guy? Now, did you honestly?" Because he said, "I saw the footage. It didn't look like it was just a thing that just happened. It didn't look like, I don't think Jack told you to break his leg. That wasn't in the story." And he does apologize to Bobby. Even beforehand, he picks up, Bobby's trying to fix a plate while he's on crutches. He does it for him, picks up everything, which is, this is why, that's one of the highlights of this episode, which is Bobby saying, "It's all right," and extends the hand to shake it. That just melts your heart. Um, but yeah, Ace just apologizing to Crystal, saying he's sorry for being mean. He's sorry for what happened in the ring, and he's sorry for what happened in outside of the ring with their relationship. And before he can say he fucked it all up, because he was fixing his lips to say it. You saw it on tip of his tongue. But he just says that he's sorry. He's genuinely sorry. But he too still needs a bit of, he needs some kind of therapy. Because watching those old videos of your dad, commenting on how well you're doing with flag football when you're a kid, bro, if your legal age to drink, so I'm assuming that he's 21, 22, maybe 23. Sooner or later, you and your brother need to sit down and have a cry it out about what happened with your dad and how your relationship reflects on one another. Because, if I'm correct, last episode looks like he's tempted to go work with Rooster at the GLW, GWL, or GLC, GMC, wherever the place is called. He's tempted to go work over there. Let's talk about Bill. Bill also has some character development here because he's not antagonistic towards Jack when Jack gets to the place, which was very funny when Rooster tells him, "Yeah, by the way, Bill's upstairs." Bill's upstairs. And one of the tipping points for Rooster, because Rooster was smoking a cigarette, and Jax was like, "Well, you were facing one of our companies. Just put it out." And Rooster throws it down, then picks it back up and smokes as soon as he leaves. That was your little sprinkle. That's when you knew. Anyway, Bill even gives Jack a warning about Dickie. He's like, "I worked with the guy. He broke my wrist in an I Quit match that wasn't supposed to happen, obviously." And he's saying, the relationship that he had with Tom was more complicated than he knows. Which is strange because in that time when he said that, I actually fully believed him, which is entirely true. Um, but it's interesting enough. Jack also tells him, "You're not gonna get anywhere near the state fair working with us unless you talk to Willie." Because Willie put her foot down. And I love that Jack respects Willie that much. Like, the guy's not sexist, he's not racist, he's just a guy that's just trying to do the right thing by his people, by his family. And he is very much overlooking his emotional health and his mental health. And he definitely needs to have a good cry, Jack. You need to cry, bro. But when it comes to Bill, we get the lowdown that Willie was Bill's valet. Because Willie brings up, "Hey, you were nicer to me back in the day." He's like, "You know why I was nicer to you? Because I was in love with you. I thought you loved me too. Apparently, you didn't see anything in me. You went and was Tom's valet. And you thought I was going to fail. But obviously, you didn't fail." Because Willie does feed him this whole line about, you know, you can't say I'm sorry and pile on top of the words you've already said. Which Bill does fire back kind of cockily after he says, "I cared about you and you abandoned me. And yeah, it's taken me a couple of decades to say this, but this is why I am the way I am. This is why I am in relationship to you, to Tom, and the whole thing." This is where his bitterness came from. Now, Bill also says, Tom never asked him for help, which I fully believe. It seems like the Spade boys are very stubborn, and it seems like Tom wouldn't be the type to ask him for help. But yeah, he does say, while he has a hard time saying sorry in the beginning, when Willie says, "If you want to say sorry, you need to actually man up and say it." But he's only saying sorry for bringing her daughter into it, which is interesting because she was on the phone with her daughter saying, "You need to have your butt at home by the time I get home." I digress. Some good character development, and it's crazy because Bill's story mirrors Ace's very well. Having your valet switch to another guy, seeming like the person you're having feelings for is somewhere else. Makes me wonder if Willie and Tom had a thing. Maybe not. Maybe. Who knows? But it's interesting that I did say maybe episode 3 or 4. It seems like Bill and Ace are two sides of the same coin because Bill knows exactly what he's doing, and he's made the same mistakes and had the same experiences almost that Ace did. As a matter of fact, he claims that him coming back to help was scouting his brother. He even says that to Jack, I believe, saying, there are tons of aces everywhere. I came back to help him out, to throw him a bone. Again, which is very believable. He pointed out that it's not that Ace is talented, it's just women want to fuck him, and fuckability goes out the window over time. But at least he was trying to come and try to help out some way. Yeah, that's it is a very complicated relationship, especially with a person that is no longer alive. But at the same time, Bill did cause these issues. So for him turning things around for the DWL is interesting. I do have a feeling they're going to go through with the match, but it's pretty much interesting. Willie, man, I do appreciate her standing with Crystal. It's very nice to see. At least she's trying to be nice, but she's only nice when it's just the two of them. She needs to be a lot nicer when it's Jack there, even though Jack is running the show. Um, I can appreciate because it looks like the words that Ace said at the christening, struck her, and it's nice to see that she was at least willing to talk to Bill while also telling him to get the hell away from her, especially when she told him don't touch him, don't touch her. Like that was really 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 good interaction between them. So some things seem to be mending. Some people seem to be turning in the right direction in terms of healing. Um, and one of the small little tidbits we get are from Apocalypse, played by James Harrison. Apocalypse got his name from the movie Apocalypse Now, which is about Vietnam War, because his father was a chef in the Vietnam War. Now he said he served in it, but he said his dad was fat. It was a chef, didn't really serve, but he was there, and said his dad was 52 when he had his son. That was crazy. But Apocalypse, we don't get his real name, but unless his name is actually James in the show as well, but he runs an AA meeting. His, like I said about his words in the beginning about did I mention his words in the beginning? I think I mentioned his words in the beginning where he's saying, "Oh, I didn't." Where you don't forget your past. Don't say that you don't want to harp on it. Look at your past and have gratitude for it, because he's used that past so he doesn't have the same impulses and do the same thing he's done before. That is why you remember the past and you own up to it. Not to bring yourself down, but to make sure you don't fall in an old hat. And that's something I've actually heard before. I've heard that saying before in my life as well. So I love the perspective that James slash Apocalypse gives. So, but yeah, that's the show. I adore this show. It's really hard for me to rank the episodes because it seems like the story that they are laying down episode to episode gets better. Now this one, if I had to rank it between a three, not three, between 4.5 and a 3.5. It's not bad. It's just it's climaxes are happening. The climax with Rooster has gone up. We're getting too close to a climax with Crystal, Ace, and Stacy. Hoping Jack comes through for Stacy. I'm hoping him and his brother finally hash it out. We had 2 episodes left, and show's kind of taking a 2 week hiatus. Kind of, it's going to be back in 2 weeks. Man, it's quite interesting. And before I forget, there's 2 references. I believe the reference when Bill exposed himself on a plane was a reference to the plane ride from hell, which it was on Dark Side of the Ring, and I just recently learned about what happened in there, which is, Ric Flair exposing himself, and Dustin Rhodes when he was going through his substance issues, telling his wife at the time not to talk about Brock Lesnar, propositioning her for some things with his hands and sexual assault allegations and things that actually happened. And Tommy Dreamer is now off of Impact because he made an excuse for Ric Flair. And Ric Flair is definitely not going to be on TV for AEW. So yeah, that plane right to hell. Please watch Dark Side of the Ring. If you like wrestling or if you like documentaries about people that you remember, sports stars, things like that, watch Dark Side of the Ring for sure. I think that Tom Spade's suicide is a different version of the Benoit was it double homicide suicide. I think that's a double that's a flip side of it because it's just like in this show. Benoit's suicide double homicide is very complicated. Personally, Chris Benoit was one of my favorite wrestlers. I appreciate the wrestler. I don't know how I feel about the person because it's very obvious that he was not in his right mind. And it was very obvious that the death of Eddie Guerrero, amongst other things, amongst concussions and emotional abuse and substance abuse while becoming a wrestler, a lot of things compiled that led up to that moment, which I am not making any excuses for. The act was vile. The act was sad. I tend to prefer to try to remember just the performer, the wrestler, and not the person behind the wrestler. But yeah, just like Tom Spade's suicide, this just like Benoit and Tom Spade, there are some correlations, some things that are in common with that. Pardon me. But let me know what you thought of the episode. Do you see some of the connections I'm making here? Are you enjoying the show? Do you think Ace is actually going to change? Do you think Ace is going to betray his brother? Much how Rooster has flown the coop. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below, please. As always, please give me a like. If you're subscribed, hit the notification bell to be notified of more videos like this. As always, share the video so other people can join in with the wealth of wrestling knowledge that I try to bestow upon you. And as always, I'm very much grateful and I very much appreciate each and every last one of you. Please be good, be blessed. Wash your hands, wear your mask. Be good to yourself, be good to others. Please don't be a jerk. Realize you are never alone. Somebody out there loves you. Someone's out there to talk to you. And I will definitely see you all next time.